Let's talk about all of this with Dr. Peter Pitts. He's a former associate commissioner at the FDA and the co-founder of the Center for Medicine in the Public Interest. Thanks for being with us, Dr. Pitts. First of all, let's explain what Naloxone is. It's used in emergency rooms across the U.S. Explain what its effects are, how it's used, what it does.
Well, it's an emergency medicine. It's used in emergency rooms. It's used on the street. It's used in clinics. It's used wherever somebody's having an overdose. And it really is miraculous. It brings the victim back to life. It's a rescue med. And it's important that these rescue meds are available because if they're not, the patient can die before they get to hospital to get the more intense care that they need.
So it jolts the body's response back to life? Is that what it does?
For all intents and purposes, it wakes up the body out of its oxy stupor and allows doctors and paramedics to do their job.
So the FDA, as we said, is looking at making this drug more accessible over the counter. How significant is that?
Well, not necessarily over the counter, but they're simplifying the labeling so people understand what it is, how it can be used, and
to eliminate
when it should
the need
be
for a
used.
prescription.
Exactly
is
right.
The idea.
So basically, when somebody walks into a pharmacy and says, "I need naloxone," they should be able to have it right away, because these are not something that you can kind of get when the pharmacist gets around to it. It's really one way the FDA is saying, listen, this is medicine that needs to be used immediately, needs to be made readily available, and people need to understand how to use it.
Well, here's the concern, is that if it's made too accessible, in a way it could perpetuate drug use, because, and I'm not talking about the prescription opioids, the accidental overdoses, those that are used are street drugs like heroin.
Right.
It counts as that as well. And there's a concern that drug dealers can now be selling it as a package deal. Get the heroin and get the drug that's going to revive you in the event of an overdose, and that it perpetuates and enables the problem.
That's a crucial point, because overwhelmingly people that abuse prescription opioids get them without a doctor's prescription. And you don't want to give these people permission to misuse these drugs, because if something goes wrong, they can be saved. There's a magic bullet back there. So it's dangerous. So you need to make sure that these are handled by medical professionals, that it's not OTC. It still requires a doctor's prescription and a pharmacist's supervision, so the people who are abusing these products don't feel they're getting a free pass.
The Surgeon General is recommending that people who know someone who's at risk for an opioid overdose should carry Naloxone. I mean, I feel that, like, maybe, as we said, there's a line between rescuing people and a line between enabling this problem even further.
This is not about children with peanut allergies. This is talking to people that need help, that need serious medical and psychological intervention. Don't do whatever you want, and if things go wrong, we'll just give you this rescue med. We can't send that message. And telling people, if you live in a community where there are lots of abusers, carry it with you just in case. That's not the way you solve a public health problem. It's the way you perpetuate it.
So you don't think that it's a good idea that the restrictions on it will be lifted?
I think you want people to have broader access to it as necessary, without sending the message that do whatever you want, and if something goes wrong, this can pull you out of a bad place. That's a dangerous proposition.
Right. Let's talk about what's happening with the Sackler family. They are the family that owns the makers of Oxycontin. And as we mentioned in the package, they're being accused of pushing doctors to prescribe heavier doses of the painkiller to keep patients on it for longer. That in fact they were aware of how addictive it is, and despite that, were putting out the message, push this drug. What do you make of the story?
Well, the news that's out today is that Purdue Pharma, which is the company that makes Oxycontin, did all these things. But what they did was they released thousands, tens of thousands of emails. So there's quite a bit of cherry picking going on. I think what the key message here is that the Sacklers, the family that runs Purdue Pharma, recognized that this problem was being perpetuated by criminals, by junkies, and that story needed to be told, because if you only say, gee, doctors are being misled, then it becomes a corporate malfeasance story as opposed to a broader societal problem. At the end of the day, these companies are extremely heavily regulated, and I can't believe that any company is going to do what the FDA is telling them not to do. And by the way, it's important to know that there's no evidence that they did anything contrary to what the FDA specifically said they were allowed to say.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Pitts. Appreciate your analysis.